Good evening. I'm Krisanachkate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. Nunavummiut are standing with Greenlanders as United States President Donald Trump continues to make threats that he will annex Greenland. As APTN's Justin Hardy tells us, a protest was held this weekend in Iqaluit to show solidarity with Iqaluit, or Inuit of Greenland.
Iqaluit Nunat, Iqaluit Pigat means Greenland belongs to Greenlanders. This cry comes in response to ever-increasing threats from U.S. President Trump to annex the territory, according to Iqaluit organizer Ayu Peter.
We are showing support for Greenland and Greenlanders since Donald Trump is threatening to take over Greenland or to buy it, and that's totally not acceptable.
Dozens of Nunavummiut braved the cold Saturday morning to stand in solidarity with protests happening in Greenland and Denmark, as well as other Arctic communities. Nunavut and Greenland have long-standing relationships, both culturally and through government partnerships. Last week, Premier John Mayne spoke on the importance of Nunavut standing with Greenland. He says that there haven't been any official talks yet between governments, but Nunavut will do anything in its power to support them.
That's our intention going forward, is to have those conversations with them when a time permits or presents itself, and then to listen to what they have to say in terms of how we can offer support and respect their views and their desire for self-determination.
While many are concerned that President Trump will turn his sights on the Canadian Arctic should he take Greenland, Peter says that she's not too worried about that.
It's just a person who is very unpredictable. He goes from one to the other, he threatens everybody, and we don't really know where he's standing.
She adds that there were better ways for the U.S. to try to get what they're after.
In Greenland, we are trying to ask him what is it that he wants. If he could just say what he wants, then maybe we can work together with him for security or for minerals. But he cannot do it by force. He shouldn't be allowed to do it by force.
Justin Hardy, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
And we have a team en route to Greenland now. Stay tuned later this week for those stories and updates on APTN National News and on aptnnews.ca. The United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE, has been making headlines over their choice of tactics in cities throughout the U.S., most recently with the fatal shooting of 37-year-old mother Renee Good in Minneapolis, where roughly 3,000 ICE and Border Patrol agents are stationed. Despite orders to look for undocumented immigrants illegally living in the country, several Native Americans have also been detained. Amelia Schaefer joins us now from Rapid City, South Dakota. She is a reporter with ICT, formerly known as Indian Country Today. Thanks for speaking with us, Amelia. As a journalist who has been covering ICE and its impacts on Indigenous people in the United States, what are you hearing in regards to how Indigenous people are feeling about ICE during this time?
Thank you for having me. So a lot of Indigenous people in the United States are very concerned about ICE's presence, especially in Minneapolis. The Franklin Avenue area on the south side of the city is considered a cultural corridor for the Native American community, and there has been heavy ICE presence in that area.
Amelia, can you explain some Indigenous people or how some Indigenous people have been impacted by ICE operations so far, including there in Minneapolis?
Yeah, we have received reports of over 5 individuals who have been detained by ICE in Minneapolis. 4 were from the Oglala Sioux tribe, originally located in South Dakota, and 1 is a descendant of the Red Lake Nation, trying to connect with another Native woman who was detained as well. But community members are saying that they're concerned about racial profiling leading to these detainments. A lot of Latino people have Indigenous ancestry, meaning that they share physical similarities with Native people, and that has led to allegations of racial profiling in South Minneapolis.
You talked about it a bit there, Amelia, but if this is about undocumented immigrants, can you explain why some Native Americans are being detained, and what role does racism play in this?
Right. So at least one of the individuals, I don't have the names of the 4 Oglala Lakota men, but one of the individuals, Jose Roberto Ramirez, does have a Spanish surname. So there are concerns in the community about people who may have Spanish ancestry or be mixed Latino that have these surnames being targeted by ICE. And there are also concerns from tribes in the Southwest who do have a lot of Spanish surnames in their community just through colonization. So there are a lot of allegations of racial profiling. I have not heard back from ICE on why Jose was detained in Minneapolis, or rather he was detained in a northern suburb called Robbinsdale. However, I have not heard why he was being pursued or what reason they had for detaining him. As for the 4 Oglala men, they were detained in a homeless encampment near the Little Earth Housing Unit, which is a Native American housing unit. And I was told by people there that they believe officers, or rather ICE agents, don't really realize that they're in a Native American area and are questioning whoever they come across.
Thousands of federal agents have been deployed to Minneapolis, as we were just talking about there. That's also where the American Indian movement began. What has Native American grassroots organizing look like during this time of political unrest, and how are people uniting at this time?
We have seen dozens of tribal nations across the United States step up and offer free or reduced cost IDs for their citizens. I know the Oglala Sioux tribe and several other Oceti-Sakowee nations met in Minneapolis at the American Indian Center to provide ID renewals to citizens. We've also seen tribes like the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe who are lowering the age requirement to possess a tribal ID. It has been lowered to 5. So on a tribal standpoint, tribes are doing whatever they can to make IDs more accessible for citizens, and also providing in some cases descendancy documentation or encouraging descendants to carry their CDIB cards, which show that they are a descendant. In other circumstances, like on the South Side where AIM first began, community members are starting up patrol programs to help patrol and make sure community members are safe. I spoke previously with some members from the Indigenous Peoples Movement, which is located in that cultural corridor in South Minneapolis. And they, along with other community organizations in the Minneapolis area, are providing on-the-ground relief and patrols and other services for people who feel scared or might need some extra looking over.
Lastly, we have just under a minute left here. Are there concerns around the Jay Treaty not being recognized for some Canadian-born First Nations people living in the States?
That is something that I've been monitoring for a while. I have not found any instances or reports of that happening. However, I have been pursuing that and am definitely interested. I have so far, in where I live in South Dakota, only seen one report of a First Nations person who was deported from South Dakota. However, while he was here on the Jay Treaty, he committed a crime on a Native reservation in South Dakota, and at that point, since he is a criminal, could legally be deported, which he had also requested to be deported back to Canada. So we are monitoring for sure if there are any concerns or any people not acknowledging the Jay Treaty, and that is something that I am definitely interested in continuing to monitor.
Amelia, thank you so much for your insight. That's Amelia Schaefer, a journalist for ICT in the United States.
Thank you so much for having me.
A news release by Manitoba Hydro on Monday morning says that during a recent inspection of the power lines serving Cross Lake in Pimicikamat Cree Nation, shotgun pellet damage was found. Manitoba Hydro say they are asking hunters and firearm enthusiasts to think of the consequences before shooting at hydro equipment. APTN's Julia Ross brings us an update.
Hydro says that it has not been established that shotgun pellets caused the line break and outage, resulting in Pimicikamat Cree Nation's ongoing state of emergency. Hydro says a preliminary examination on December 28th showed shotgun pellet damage to the aerial marker balls and the power line itself, and that the definitive cause of the break is still under investigation, and they believe there is no immediate danger of another power outage. Manitoba Hydro says they currently plan to replace the river crossing spans of the power line that show firearm damage. In a statement from MKO, Chief David Monius says flying over the power line in a helicopter is not a full investigation. Chief Monius says Pimicikamat continues to call for a permanent solution and that Manitoba Hydro acknowledged the urgent need to replace transmission lines over water crossings by March. He says that the need to replace entire sections of the transmission line proves how vulnerable the outdated infrastructure is. Julia Ross, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
A Northwest Territories Supreme Court judge will have to decide if a trial involving multiple sexual offense charges and one count of arson against a former Beaufort Delta school principal should proceed as one or be severed into two trials. APTN's Charlotte Mort-Jacobs now with an update.
The accused, Richard McKinnon, appeared via video in a Yellowknife courtroom on January 16th. Defense counsel is asking that the sexual offense charges be tried separate from the arson charge, arguing that evidence involving text messages could unfairly influence the allegation of arson. The text messages occurred in the summer of 2024 from the accused to a minor and included a general apology, acknowledgement of wrongdoing, and reference to a life insurance policy payable if death was accidental. McKinnon was arrested and charged on August 5th and released on bail August 6th. The next day, a fire broke out in his apartment unit, and McKinnon was found with self-inflicted life-threatening injuries. The Crown countered the request, saying the evidence is closely connected and evidence could be heard together fairly in a single trial. The defense says they will challenge the Crown's theory of criminal intent behind the messages. A publication ban is in effect, and none of the allegations have been proven in court. The judge's decision is expected January 26th in Yellowknife.
Occupational therapists were in Ottawa on Monday to call on the federal government to do a better job of managing the Jordan's Principle and Inuit Child First Initiative programs. Members of both the Canadian Association of Occupational Therapy and Speech Language and Audiology Canada protested in Ottawa. They say massive backlogs in processing applications to the programs is denying First Nations and Inuit children of services they rely on. Workers are also being left without timely payments. They say the situation is particularly bad in northern and remote communities. Irving Gold is the Chief Executive Officer of the Canadian Association of Occupational Therapy. At a press conference, he made a number of suggestions for improving the programs.
Enforce service standards. 10 days for decisions, 30 days for payments. Families deserve the same accountability and the government demands from taxpayers. Stop the NIHB shuffle. Fix the failures in the non-insured health benefits program that forced children into the Jordan's Principle queue in the first place, turning what was meant to be a safeguard into the default. Consult rights holders and the front lines.
Saskatchewan RCMP is warning the public of a scam that is targeting elders in the North Battleford area. That story after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. North Battleford RCMP have received multiple reports of what's being called a grandparent scam. They are sharing tips on how to stay safe and are asking anyone who receives one of these fraudulent calls to come forward. The scam targets elderly people with phone calls from someone pretending to be or say they know a family member. The callers claim there is an emergency and demand money, such as saying a loved one is in jail and needs bail. RCMP say if you receive a call demanding money, hang up and contact your loved one directly or call police to verify the claim. RCMP also warned to never give money to strangers, question unusual phone calls, and remember spoofed numbers can appear legitimate. RCMP spokesperson Mandy Meyer says scammers may ask for more than just cash.
If you're ever asked to make payments in gift cards or a wire transfer, cryptocurrency, or some other form of payment, that can maybe indicate that something suspicious is happening. Never ever give your credit card number to someone who's called you with this type of a scenario. Speak to your bank in person before making any large withdrawals as well.
The First Nation of Nunavummiut in north-central Yukon has signed what it calls a historic agreement with mining company Snowline Gold Corp. The MOU between both parties was signed on Saturday. Snowline is conducting advanced exploration work at its Rogue project, which sits within the First Nations traditional territory. It requires the First Nations free, prior, and informed consent before the construction of a mining project can go ahead. It also ensures the First Nations decision-making authority is respected before a new mine is built. The agreement is the first of its kind signed under the First Nations mining policy, which details how it expects to work with operators.
Well, this is the first of its kind in the Yukon. It is a legally binding agreement that Snowline will not do anything in regards to building a mine or anything without the consent of the First Nation of Nunavummiut.
Yeah, and it's important for us as a company too, and for myself as a Yukoner to see things done the right way. We have a complicated and storied history of mining in recent decades here, and but there is that potential here. There's no reason, geologically speaking, that we can't do it the right way, that we can't have success stories here.
A recently released report says there are major barriers for Two-Spirit, transgender, and gender non-conforming people in the Northwest Territories needing to access gender-affirming healthcare. As our APTN reporter Charlotte Mort-Jacobs tells us, community advocates and the people who wrote the report are hoping it creates change.
When it comes to gender-affirming healthcare in the Northwest Territories, urgent improvements are needed. That's according to a recently released public report by the Northern Mosaic Network in partnership with researchers from the University of Manitoba. It examines existing territorial guidelines for transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming healthcare and concludes that while policies exist, they aren't working as intended. Co-author of the report, Emily Smith, says the findings and recommendations come from patients and providers.
Coverage for gender-affirming care is not comprehensive. There are some things that are covered and medical travel will be covered, but there are a lot of things that aren't, especially when it comes to any kind of feminizing procedures. So there's really an inequality there in terms of what people have access to, and it's very expensive to pay out of pocket.
Some barriers identified include confusing, inaccessible, and incomplete guidelines, limited informed and compassionate providers, and impacts of various forms of oppression. Some patient and caregiver recommendations include updating guidelines for improved readability, accessibility, and scope, including mental health care as part of gender-affirming healthcare, implementing mandatory and ongoing tailored training for healthcare workers, and updating electronic medical records beyond M and F gender options. The report also recommends bringing in locum specialists or having a dedicated gender clinic to reduce the need for out-of-territory medical travel.
And that's really important because from the administrative part of walking into the room and interacting with somebody at the desk, all of those steps impact somebody's experience as a patient. And unfortunately, as the report shows, people have bad experiences, have experienced discrimination and things that create barriers for them to access care.
The report echoes the deep concerns Northerners have vocalized about the rise of anti-transgender hate in Alberta, the threat to gender-affirming care, and the NWT's reliance on that province for NWT patient needs.
We weren't able to talk to youth because obviously working with youth as a part of research has a different level of ethics procedures, and especially for our first project, that just wasn't something that we could do. But I think it's really important to talk to youth because they are being uniquely impacted, especially with what's happening in Alberta. So part of that is making sure that the GNWT is also talking to people, talking to patients. This is a starting point, but this is not the be-all and end-all of hearing directly from people.
The full report can be found on the Northern Mosaic Network's website. Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
We want to hear what you think about that exact story you just saw. Here's how to continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Photo of the day and weather is up next. Plus, we'll tell you about a certain Indigenous professional hockey player who is making the move to Canada. That story after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. This beautiful photo was taken from Darlene from her backyard in Winnipeg last week. Thanks for sharing, Darlene. Send us your photo to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Time now to take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. On the east coast, St. John's 2, Charlottetown -1 and clear skies there. Happy Valley, Goose Bay -3, the Grand River, sun's out -26. Saguenay -9, Quebec City -10. Toronto, clear skies -10, London -10 as well. Sudbury -11, Sioux Lookout -18. Norway House -18, Puckatawagan -15. -14 in Winnipeg, Barons River -18. Estevan -8, Saskatoon -9. Meadow Lake -9, La Ronge, clear skies and -13. -6 in Fort McMurray, high level -2. -4 in Medicine Hat, Calgary +1. Tofino 10, Vancouver 11. Sand Spit cloudy and 2, Smithers -6. -6 in Whitehorse, Mayo -15. Trout Lake -4, Fort Liard -7. Tuktoyaktuk -19, Paulatuk -21. Chesterfield -25, Baker Lake -26. And Arctic Bay -28, Resolute -29. The Calgary Flames is sending one of their top offensive defensemen to the Las Vegas Golden Knights in a multiple-player trade announced Sunday night. The Flames is sending their defenseman Rasmus Andersson to the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Andersson has 10 goals and 20 assists in 48 games so far. In return, the Calgary Flames gets veteran First Nations player Zach Whitecloud and 2 top-tier draft picks. The 29-year-old Whitecloud is from the Sioux Valley Dakota Nation near Brandon, Manitoba. He spent his entire 8-year career with the Knights and won the Stanley Cup in 2023 with the Knights. Whitecloud told reporters he looks forward to playing for an NHL team from Western Canada. I'm sure Calgary Flame fans are already ordering Whitecloud Flames jerseys. Congrats to Whitecloud and his family on the upcoming move to Alberta. And that's all the time we have for this evening's newscast. APTN National News Daytime is back again tomorrow midday. Please join us then. From our HQ in downtown Winnipeg, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you again. Stay warm out there.